First contact. Dr. Nirvana Solaris stood at the viewing port of the research vessel Discovery, his crystalline appendages reflecting the starlight as he watched the massive human approach. Thor Steinsson was unlike any being he'd encountered in his centuries of xenobiological research. At nearly 7 feet tall and over 400 pounds of dense muscle mass, the human made the reinforced deck plates groan with each step. The Tyrian scientist had reviewed Thor's credentials extensively: 3 degrees from prestigious human universities, groundbreaking research on death world ecosystems, and numerous published papers on extreme environment adaptations. But it was the gap in Thor's early career that troubled Dr. Solaris: his service in the Terran Alliance Special Forces, specifically the Sea, Air, and Land Unit known as the SEALs. "Welcome aboard the Discovery," Dr. Solaris managed, extending a crystalline appendage in greeting. The human's massive hand engulfed his own, yet Thor's grip was carefully controlled. "Dr. Solaris, it's an honor," Thor replied, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. "Your work on comparative xenobiology laid the foundation for my own research. I'm particularly fascinated by your theories on convergent evolution in high-gravity environments." The genuine enthusiasm in Thor's voice gave Dr. Solaris pause. This was not the brutish warrior he'd expected, but rather a fellow scientist who spoke the language of academic discourse fluently. Still, as Thor ducked to pass through the ship's corridors, his presence remained imposing. The Discovery's chief engineer, Jackson Marshall, arrived shortly after, his slight frame and wire-rimmed glasses a stark contrast to Thor's bulk. "The new crew quarters aren't quite ready," Marshall reported. "The standard bunks weren't designed for someone of Mr. Steinsson's proportions." Thor merely smiled. "No worries. I've slept in worse conditions. A chair for my feet will suffice until proper accommodations can be arranged." As Dr. Solaris led Thor on a tour of the research vessel's extensive laboratories, he found himself increasingly intrigued by the dichotomy of their newest crew member. Thor's questions were insightful, demonstrating a deep understanding of xenobiology in ecological systems. Yet there was an unmistakable military bearing in his movements, a constant awareness of his surroundings that spoke to years of combat experience. The tour ended in a cargo bay, where Thor's casual demonstration of human throwing capabilities left Dr. Solaris both fascinated and unnerved. The baseball had shattered one of their robotic assistants with devastating force, a stark reminder of humanity's evolutionary advantages as pursuit predators. Later that evening, Dr. Solaris found Thor and Marshall engaged in a chess match in the mess hall. The sight of the massive ex-soldier contemplating his next move with scholarly concentration while sharing stories with the engineer began to shift the xenobiologist's perspective. "Your mother is Serafina Ironforge?" Dr. Solaris asked, recognizing the legendary name from Thor's casual mention. Thor nodded, a mix of pride and something darker crossing his features. "The North Wind herself. Though she'd prefer to be remembered for her current work protecting endangered species on death worlds rather than her military exploits." "Like mother, like son," Marshall quipped, moving his bishop. "Something like that," Thor replied. "Though I'd argue that understanding a planet's ecosystem is more challenging than fighting its inhabitants. Life finds a way to survive in the most extreme conditions. That's what fascinates me now." As the Discovery prepared for its jump to faster-than-light travel, Dr. Solaris found himself re-evaluating his initial judgments. Thor Steinsson was indeed a warrior, but he was also a scientist whose unique background might prove invaluable on their expedition to a Class 20 death world. The ship's AI, YL, initiated the jump sequence, and Dr. Solaris watched as the stars stretched into lines of light. They had 18 days until they reached their destination, 18 days to bridge the gap between soldier and scholar, between human and alien, between preconception and understanding. Little did they know that Thor's combination of combat experience and scientific expertise would soon prove crucial to their survival. As the Discovery slipped between the layers of spacetime, they were unaware that they were heading toward a discovery that would shake the foundations of galactic society, and test the limits of both human strength and alien wisdom. Signs and portents. 8 days into their journey, the Discovery's sensors detected something unprecedented. Dr. Solaris stood at the main console, his crystalline form refracting the holographic displays as he studied the readings with growing concern. "These energy signatures," he muttered, "they're similar to ancient Tyrian technology, but the output levels are orders of magnitude higher." Thor looked up from his own workstation, where he'd been analyzing preliminary data on their destination planet. Could it be natural phenomena? "Impossible," Marshall interjected, his fingers dancing across multiple interfaces. "These patterns are too regular, too structured. Someone built something out there." The Discovery dropped out of faster-than-light travel, its advanced sensors probing the seemingly empty region of space. They were far from any charted systems, in a section of the galaxy that should have been pristine, untouched. There, Thor pointed to a subtle distortion in the starfield. "YL, can you enhance that sector?" The ship's AI complied, and the image resolved into something that made even Dr. Solaris's crystalline structure vibrate with excitement. Floating in the void was a massive structure, clearly artificial but of unknown origin. Its architecture defied conventional physics, with segments that seemed to fold into dimensions that shouldn't exist. "It's some kind of research facility," Dr. Solaris announced after analyzing the sensor data. "The energy signatures suggest it's still operational, but there are no life signs aboard." Thor's military training kicked in as he studied the structure. "Those look like weapon emplacements, but they're unlike anything in human or known alien arsenals." "Doctor, you mentioned Tyrian technology?" "Yes, but from an era long before my species achieved spaceflight. We've found references in our oldest archives to a civilization that preceded us, one that achieved technological heights we can barely comprehend. But all evidence of their existence vanished millions of years ago." Marshall whistled low. "Well, looks like we found some of that evidence." After careful consideration and multiple scans confirming no immediate dangers, they decided to dock with the facility. The Discovery's adaptive airlock system interfaced with the ancient structure's entry port as if they had been designed for each other. Thor insisted on being part of the first exploration team, and Dr. Solaris couldn't argue with the logic of having someone with combat experience leading the way. They assembled a small group: Thor, Dr. Solaris, Marshall for his technical expertise, and 2 of the ship's robotic assistants carrying scientific equipment. The interior of the facility was both familiar and alien. The corridors seemed to shift subtly as they walked, adapting to the physical requirements of the visitors. For Thor, they expanded to accommodate his height. For Dr. Solaris, crystalline surfaces emerged that resonated with his natural frequency. "This place," Marshall breathed in awe, "it's not just responsive, it's learning from us." They found their way to what appeared to be a central research chamber. Holographic displays sprang to life around them, showing designs for something that made Thor's breath catch in his throat. "That's armor," he said, stepping closer to one of the displays. "But not like anything I've ever seen. The integration with the wearer's nervous system, the adaptive materials, the power generation, this is centuries beyond current human technology." Dr. Solaris moved to another console, his appendages interfacing directly with the ancient systems. "It's more than armor. These designs suggest it was meant to be a bridge between organic and synthetic life, allowing the wearer to survive in any environment, even the vacuum of space, indefinitely." "But why build it?" Marshall asked, examining the facility's power core with professional appreciation. What were they preparing for? Before anyone could answer, the facility's systems surged with new energy. Holographic warnings flashed in multiple ancient languages, and a message began repeating in a tongue that somehow all of them could understand. "The darkness comes. The barriers between dimensions weaken. The armor must find worthy bearers." Thor's combat instincts screamed a warning seconds before the chamber's doors sealed shut. The facility's automated systems activated, and the room began to transform around them. "I don't think we found this place by accident," Thor said grimly, moving to protect the others as mechanical appendages emerged from the walls. I think it found us. Dr. Solaris watched in fascination as the facility's systems began interfacing with their environmental suits, scanning their biological patterns, measuring their capabilities. No, he agreed, this is no accident. This is a test. The ancient facility had awakened, and it had plans for its visitors, plans that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the nature of life, technology, and the very fabric of reality itself. The testing. The chamber hummed with ancient power as 3 distinct testing areas materialized around them. Each zone seemed specifically tailored to their individual strengths, a high-gravity combat simulation for Thor, a crystalline maze that resonated with Dr. Solaris's natural frequency, and a complex mechanical puzzle that called to Marshall's engineering expertise. The facility isn't just testing our physical capabilities, Dr. Solaris observed as holographic interfaces sprouted from the walls. It's measuring our problem-solving abilities, our capacity for adaptation, and most importantly, our ability to work together. Thor moved cautiously toward his designated area, his military training evident in every precise movement. These simulations, they're drawing from our memories, our experiences. The combat scenarios I'm seeing, they're amalgamations of every battle I've ever fought. Marshall nodded, his fingers already dancing across the holographic engineering interface. Same here. I'm looking at mechanical systems that shouldn't exist, but they all follow principles I understand. It's like the facility is speaking our individual languages. The tests began simultaneously. Thor found himself facing holographic opponents that combined the worst threats he'd encountered, swarm creatures, planetary defense systems, and even mimics of his old combat teammates. But the facility wasn't testing his ability to fight, it was testing his ability to choose when not to. Dr. Solaris's crystalline maze shifted and realigned with each step, requiring him to think in dimensions his species had long forgotten. The pattern spoke of an age when Tyrians were more than researchers, when they were builders of realities and shapers of worlds. Marshall's mechanical challenge evolved faster than he could solve it, yet each solution he discovered revealed new principles of engineering that bordered on the miraculous. This isn't just a test, he called out to the others. It's teaching us. As they progressed through their individual trials, the barriers between their testing zones began to fade. Thor's combat scenarios began incorporating elements that only Dr. Solaris could interpret. The crystalline maze extended tendrils into Marshall's mechanical puzzles. Each challenge required all 3 of them working in concert. The armor, Thor realized as he helped Dr. Solaris navigate a particularly complex pattern while Marshall reconfigured the energy flows around them. It's not meant for individuals. It's a system designed for different species to work together. Dr. Solaris's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. Of course. The ancient archives spoke of a time when multiple species fought together against a common threat. We thought they were myths, but this facility, it's a training ground for an interspecies defense force. Marshall's eyes widened as he made the final connections in his puzzle. And the armor adapts to each species' unique biology. Thor's human endurance and strength, Dr. Solaris's crystalline resonance, my understanding of systems, the armor enhances what makes each of us unique while allowing us to function as a single unit. The facility's systems surged again, but this time the energy felt approving. The chamber's walls became transparent, revealing vast manufacturing areas where automated systems were already beginning to construct 3 distinct suits of armor. The barriers between dimensions weaken, the facility's message repeated, but now they understood its true meaning. The ancient builders hadn't created weapons, they'd created tools for cooperation, understanding that the greatest threats could only be faced by multiple species working together. As the 3 of them watched their customized armor taking shape, Thor smiled. You know what this reminds me of? An old Earth legend about knights of different kingdoms coming together to face a common threat. They called it the Round Table. Then perhaps, Dr. Solaris suggested, his crystalline form reflecting the light of their newly forged armor, we are to be the first knights of a new round table, one that spans not kingdoms but entire species. The facility's final test was beginning, and with it, the true purpose of their discovery would be revealed. The armor was only the beginning, the real challenge would be proving that different species could truly work together as one. Integration. The process of integrating with the armor was unlike anything they had experienced before. For Thor, the suit seemed to flow like liquid metal, conforming to his massive frame while enhancing his natural strength and agility. Dr. Solaris's crystalline form merged with a lattice of energy fields that amplified his ability to perceive and manipulate dimensional frequencies. Marshall's armor became a living workshop, responding to his thoughts with nanoscale precision. The neural interface is incredible, Marshall reported, watching as his armor reconfigured itself based on his mental commands. It's not just reading our thoughts, it's learning from our experiences, our instincts. Thor moved through a series of combat stances, marveling at how the armor anticipated his movements. It's like having a perfect sparring partner. The suit knows what I'm going to do before I do it. Dr. Solaris's armor allowed him to perceive reality in ways his species had only theorized about. The ancient builders, they weren't just preparing for war. They were trying to evolve consciousness itself. These suits are tools for transcendence. The facility's AI began introducing them to the armor's true capabilities. Each suit could function independently, but when they worked together, they could achieve things that defied conventional physics. Thor's strength combined with Dr. Solaris's dimensional perception and Marshall's technical mastery created possibilities that none of them could have imagined alone. "Watch this," Marshall called out, establishing a neural link with the others through their armor. Suddenly, Thor could understand the crystalline mathematics that Dr. Solaris used to navigate spacetime, while Dr. Solaris could feel the tactical awareness that kept Thor alive in combat. Marshall's technical insights flowed between them like a universal language. But the integration wasn't without its challenges. The neural links exposed not just their knowledge and skills, but their fears, their doubts, their private thoughts. Thor's memories of brutal combat missions crashed against Dr. Solaris's peaceful academic pursuits. Marshall's precise technical mind struggled to accommodate the intuitive leaps that the others made. "We need to find balance," Thor realized, his military training helping him maintain focus. "The armor doesn't want us to lose our individuality, it wants us to understand each other's perspectives." Dr. Solaris agreed, his crystalline form pulsing with new insights. "It's like an ecosystem. Each species plays its unique role, but together they create something greater than the sum of their parts." As they learned to work together, the facility revealed more about the threat they were being prepared to face. The darkness wasn't just a poetic name, it was a fundamental force that sought to unravel the bonds between dimensions, between species, between minds. The ancient builders had discovered that the only way to fight this entropy was through conscious cooperation between different forms of life. "That's why the facility chose us," Marshall said, his armor helping him visualize the complex mathematics involved. A human warrior who became a scientist, a crystalline researcher who questions traditional boundaries, and an engineer who sees patterns others miss. "We're already bridge builders." The armor responded to this realization, its systems integrating more smoothly as they learned to trust each other. Thor's combat simulations became opportunities for Dr. Solaris to study high-energy physics in action. Marshall's technical experiments helped refine the neural links between them. Each challenge made them stronger together. But time was running out. The facility's warnings became more urgent as their training progressed. The darkness was growing stronger, and they weren't the only ones being prepared to fight it. Across the galaxy, other facilities like this one were awakening, calling across the galaxy, other facilities like this one were awakening, calling to other species, other combinations of skills and perspectives. Through their neural link, they could sense these distant activations like stars igniting in the night. "We're not just test subjects," Thor said, his armor humming with gathered energy. "We're prototypes for something bigger. A galactic defense force made up of every spacefaring species." The facility's systems confirmed his theory, showing them glimpses of other teams being assembled, crystalline beings like Dr. Solaris working with silicon-based life forms from gas giants, aquatic species partnering with energy beings from stellar nurseries, and humans bringing their adaptability to dozens of different combinations. The darkness doesn't just threaten one species or one dimension, Dr. Solaris observed, his armor translating abstract mathematical concepts into visceral understanding. It threatens the very concept of cooperation, of different forms of life working together. That's why the ancient builders created these suits, not just as weapons, but as bridges between worlds. As their training reached its final stages, the three of them had become something unprecedented, a single consciousness spread across three distinct beings, each maintaining their individuality while sharing a deep understanding of the other's perspectives. The armor wasn't just a tool anymore, it had become a physical manifestation of their unity. But their real test was about to begin. The facility's sensors detected a disturbance in nearby space, a tear in reality that their combined powers would need to address. The time for training was over. The time for action had come. The first stand. The dimensional tear appeared as a wound in spacetime, a writhing darkness that defied the laws of physics. Through their combined perception, they could see it for what it truly was, a point of contact between their reality and the entropy that sought to unravel it. Multiple quantum signatures, Marshall reported, his armor processing vast amounts of data. The tear is growing exponentially, affecting both space and time around it. Thor's combat experience, enhanced by the armor's capabilities, identified tactical patterns in the chaos. It's not random. The darkness is testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses in the fabric of our dimension. Dr. Solaris's crystalline resonance, amplified by his suit, detected something else. There are echoes, remnants of other realities that have already fallen. The ancient builders, they weren't just preparing for a future threat. They were fighting a war across multiple dimensions, across time itself. The three moved in perfect synchronization, their armor linking them not just mentally but physically. Thor's strength provided the foundation, Marshall's technical expertise shaped their response, and Dr. Solaris's understanding of dimensional physics guided their approach. "We need to seal that breach," Marshall said, his armor reconfiguring to channel energy from the facility. But a direct confrontation would just give it more points of contact with our reality. Thor understood immediately. We don't fight the darkness directly. We strengthen the connections between dimensions, between species. We build bridges where it tries to create gaps. Their armor responded to this insight, energy flowing between them in new patterns. Dr. Solaris's crystalline structure began resonating at frequencies that stabilized local spacetime. Marshall's technical skills allowed him to modify these frequencies with incredible precision. Thor's combat experience helped them anticipate and counter the darkness's attempts to disrupt their work. The tear fought back, sending tendrils of unreality that threatened to unravel their very existence. But where it sought to create division, their unity only grew stronger. The neural link between them expanded, incorporating not just their conscious thoughts but their fundamental understanding of reality itself. "It's working," Marshall called out as their combined efforts began to close the breach. "The dimensional frequencies are stabilizing." But the darkness had one final trick. As the tear began to seal, it released a pulse of entropy that threatened to overwhelm their defenses. In that moment, each of them faced their deepest fears. Thor saw the chaos of uncontrolled violence, Dr. Solaris faced the dissolution of all knowledge and understanding, and Marshall witnessed the breakdown of every system he had ever mastered. Their response came not from individual courage, but from their shared strength. Thor's warrior spirit became Dr. Solaris's scientific determination became Marshall's technical precision, flowing between them in an endless loop of mutual support and understanding. The armor, responding to this perfect synthesis of different perspectives, initiated its final transformation. The three suits merged into a single system, a manifestation of unity that the darkness could not corrupt. Where it sought to create chaos, they offered order. Where it tried to divide, they demonstrated the power of cooperation. The tear sealed with a reality-bending flash, leaving behind only a fading echo of what might have been. But they knew this was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, other teams were forming, other combinations of species and skills preparing to face similar challenges. As they returned to the facility, their armor still humming with shared energy, they understood that they had become something new, not just three individuals working together, but a prototype for a new kind of existence, one where differences became strengths and cooperation became power. The ancient builders, Dr. Solaris said, his crystalline form reflecting the light of their victory, they weren't just creating weapons or tools. They were showing us a path forward. Thor nodded, feeling the truth of it through their neural link. A path where every species contributes its unique perspective, where diversity becomes our greatest defense against entropy. Marshall's armor reconfigured as he processed the data from their encounter. And we're just the beginning. The facility is already sending out our success patterns to other training centers. More teams will form, more combinations will be tested. As they prepared to return to the Discovery, they knew their mission had changed. They were no longer just researchers or warriors or engineers. They had become pioneers of a new age, one where the boundaries between species, between minds, between realities themselves, would be bridged by understanding and cooperation. The darkness would return, stronger and more insidious than before. But they would be ready. And they would not face it alone. The end.